The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Maynard Bangs presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Bangs.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus K-19, The Widowmaker, a 2002 nautical thriller that follows a Soviet sub on its maiden voyage, only for disaster to strike when the nuclear reactor malfunctions. Tensions run high as the sub runs deep.
Ooh.
I didn't write it. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, you are representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. When I think of the Russian greats, my mind immediately goes to Prokofiev.
Me too.
A composer widely revered. However, he had the misfortune of dying on the same day as Joseph Stalin, and every flower in the state was sent to Stalin's service. And alas, there were no flowers for Prokofiev. We will see today that there are also new flowers for K-19, but not due to the prominence of other movies like The Hunt for the Red October, because it simply does not deserve them. We have glaring historical and technical issues to speak to, evidence that will be presented by the testimony of our own expert witness and the writings of the men that served on the real K-19. Well, that will be the majority of the case. We also have to carve out time for the, frankly, bizarre acting and directorial choices that we see from otherwise competent actors and directors. A director I have defended before, Catherine Bigelow, who normally does have a flair for action and manly tension, we could call it. I'm not sure. So
I've been described the same.
Thank you.
Mention.
Ooh, I like it.
I think there's a word like that already.
Well, now that you mention it. So please brace yourself as we go deep and then hastily emerge through the ice of problems that this movie has and conclude it should be confined to quarters indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Henry Rausch. Please present your opening statement.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Yes, I'm here to defend K-19, the Widowmaker. And at one level, I have to admit I can't defend it in the sense that it was a bad movie in the sense that...
don't say that.
Well, to think about it, they spent $90 million making it, and they recouped 65 and change back. So at that level, you have to admit it failed. If you make a movie to make money, obviously it failed. Now, I don't think, though, when you ask, is a movie good, I don't think you really give a whit about whether or not it made any money. I think what you're really asking is, do I want to spend 2 hours out of my life, as I get closer and closer to death, to watch.
We all do at the same rate.
So that's what you want to know. And I would say 1,000% spend 2 hours watching this movie. The reason it did not do well, and I'll go this in detail in the rebuttals and also in my proposition, is that it's not an American movie. It's not a comic book nonsense Michael Bay explosion movie. No, sir, Dylan. It does not have action. Does not have manly tension. Doesn't have any of that comic book nonsense. It's really it's a psychological movie, and it really, for my money, and I will go into this in detail, it's probably the best, if not second best, after Das Boot, of what it's really like to serve on board a boat. And it's not a comic book movie. It's not a popcorn movie. It's not a Michael Bay. It's not, I think Americans And the other point I'll make is that I think the reason it got a bad reception, besides, making Russians the heroes, which is anathema, is that, we have been fed a load of crap about the U.S. military. We've got this kind of hagiography about soldiers, which the reason we do is only 5% of Americans have actually been in the service right now. It used to be that was a common bond among everybody, but we've been fed such a load of crap about servicemen that they don't recognize what it's really actually like when it's presented to them, what's to be in the military. With that, I'll leave my opening remarks.
All right, thank you. Yes, and yes, money is not the end all be all of decisions in this courtroom. Jurassic World made more money than Jurassic Park. Which movie do you think is better?
Hasn't been on trial yet, Your Honor.
Just say, which movie do you think? Get him out of my courtroom. So, thank you, Mr. Rausch. Mr. Schlender, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Okay, Ryan, write down manly tension. That's the next Reels of Justice t-shirt. All right. So Henry brings up some interesting, he brings up some interesting points in his opening statement. And I in no way can compete with his vast experience on real submarines, being part of that 5% who served. So I've brought a special witness who can. If it pleases the court, I would like to call Daryl J. Schlender, Master Chief himself, to the stand.
Well, he is a Master Chief, so I can't say no. Did you write a whole swearing in on a Bible bit, or are we just going to skip that?
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, we got one. Oh, I love these.
All right, place your hand on this influence of sea power upon history. Now, do you swear to promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you, Alfred Taylor Mahan.
I do.
All right, be seated.
First question, Daryl, do you think the bailiff sounds like Scotty?
No.
No.
Why would he? You think all Scottish people have to sound like Scotty? Is that the mark?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Master Chief. And just for way of edification for everyone listening to the trial, could you please give us a brief overview of your experience in the U.S. Navy?
Well, I served in the United States Navy in the submarine force for 22 years. So I'm an enlisted individual, and I was trained as a sonar technician and started as an E3 and finished up as an E9 and chief of the boat of the good ship USS Annapolis.
And for the record, that is the highest rank that an enlisted man can achieve, apart from E10, which is only one guy anyway and doesn't really count.
That is correct.
All right, very good. With your credentials well in hand, we're watching K-19, and there's a couple elements we see in this movie, I think you would agree, and it's the tension of command and how to react in a crisis. Now, you, being a Master Chief, would have been very close to the command structure on the submarine. Can you explain how the command structure on a submarine works, and then we'll tie that back into K-19?
All right. Well, I can talk about the command structure on a U.S. boat, not so much on the Soviet.
Well, that's true. You didn't have
devastating.
you didn't have political officers, but what we're looking for here is kind of how being on a sub is its own different world that people might not be familiar with.
Yeah, it's a small, close-knit crew in most cases. I mean, depending on what vessel you were on, you could have anywhere from 100 to 140 people on board. So everybody pretty much knows everybody. But the captain obviously is the captain in charge, and the officers, they kind of run the boat from an administrative standpoint. The enlisted are trained in various trades, as it were, depending on what their jobs are. And they run the boat, the day-to-day kind of goings on with the boat. But the CO is in charge, and he has an executive officer who's the second in command. And then you would have the chief engineer or the engineer. You have a navigator, you have a weapons guy, and supply officer and stuff like that. On the enlisted side, being the Master Chief, I was a chief of the boat, so I was in charge of the chief's quarters. And the chiefs were the senior enlisted members of the I guess the worker bees, as you would call us, but it'd be weapons department, there was the engineering department, and they all had different divisions in there. So that's kind of the command structure.
All right. Now, in K-19, we see the XO in the captain having a lot of tension. Harrison Ford is really gung-ho, and Liam Neeson a bit more reserved. They have this whole argument. I'm going to put you in my report. Well, you're going to be in my report. But we actually have the K-19 veterans saying that this didn't happen. We even have power line supervisor Boris Kuzmin saying, for the crew to disobey the captain, it is unthinkable. Would you agree with that assessment? Would it take a lot for a mutiny on a submarine in particular?
Oh, yes, it would.
And what would be some orders that a captain would typically get? Like, would you see the XO push against the captain in such a public manner as we see in this movie?
I have not seen that in my experience.
In your 22 years of experience being close to the command structure of subs?
No, I haven't seen that.
All right. And of course, the reason we see it in the movie is, of course, just because it's meant to add drama. We also have Valentin Shabanov, who was the navigator for the K-19. He said, only 2 things in this film are true. The bottle of champagne did not break when the submarine was launched, and there was an accident with the reactor. I think he's downplaying the word accident. The rest are tales from Uncle Sam. So I was watching recently when you were interviewed by journalist Tom Fenton, and they were going over...
Can I allow Henry a bit to rebut just to...
Oh, yeah, please.
The maybe factual accuracy of the film, Henry.
Yeah, so it was her inaugural mission. She did suffer a reactor casualty. Was there a mutiny? No. The skipper was so terrified that there would be that he threw over all the small arms except for 5 weapons because he was terribly afraid. And the crew did come to him and ask him to scuttle the ship on Jan Mayen Island. So demonstrably, it's true. Now, like I said before, it's not a Ken Burns documentary. It's drama. So sometimes you take some liberties. But it's all the salient parts are absolutely true.
Well, okay, I think we're getting into, there are going to be a couple conflicting ideas here, because one of the crewmen did say that there were no guns. They were sealed in a safe box that only a few people knew where they were. No handcuffs on board, for example, as well. But I want to look at the other facet of the conflict here, which is, of course, the reactor going. Now, Master Chief, you served on a nuclear sub. What would be the protocol if something like this were to happen? Just generally, would you expect to see a crew panic?
I don't see the crew panic. I mean, a primary coolant leak on a nuclear submarine is a very, very bad thing. So panic, there could be some. But at the same time, figuring out what they're going to do to solve it. Yeah, I mean, I thought that part of the movie wasn't too bad.
Aha, I like it.
Well, I'm just because you're going to have to solve what the issue is going to be.
The court appreciates your honest testimony, Master.
Well, he is here for his expertise one way or the other. Don't sandbag me, Dad. What the hell?
Dad! I knew those names sounded familiar.
All right. So my last question then will be, before I let Henry redirect here for our expert witness. Given your experience on the sub, is this kind of artificial drama that we're seeing something realistic, or is it just Hollywood fable?
Oh, that's a good question. Some of the stuff that went on that boat, when they were running the drill simulations and different things like that, the close quarters and people running over the top of each other to get different things done or going over, a lot of that, it is like organized chaos. And when you are fighting a casualty, that's kind of what you get. But people have specific jobs to do in a casualty, and it can look like mayhem. So that's about the best I can describe it.
So you thought the depiction of life on a sub as shown in the film was accurate?
In a lot of the cases, the close quarters, you take a look at the bunking situation, where they were, the cramped quarters and stuff like that, the hatches running through. I'm not sure. I've never been on that class of boat, but watertight doors on boats aren't that big, and running back and forth to get things done. Yeah, that was pretty realistic.
Perfect. This is really blown up in Dylan's face. Any last questions from you, Shalenzo?
No, I'll let the defense redirect.
Henry, would you like to direct any questions to the Master Chief? I
Yes,
recommend
sir.
maybe asking him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to Master Chief, and I want to follow up on Dylan's question actually about would you expect people to panic? And Master Chief, I mean, my hat's off to you. You're chief of the boat. How many conscripts were on the boats you served with? How many people were there involuntarily?
No, none.
None.
None. No, we were an all volunteer force. I mean, that's so true.
And they were all basically you earned to get your fish. That's correct, right? That was the sine qua non of being a qualified submariner.
Absolutely, that's the.
And you're really until you're qualified, you're kind of lower than whale poop, right?
That is true.
So, would it surprise you to know that those boats are crewed by 60% conscripts?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, so basically they've got a whole middle class, Mitchmen they call them, that are basically warrant officers. They've got the commissioned officers, and those boats are run by Mitchmen. And then the people that do all the work, 60% are conscripts. I promise you they don't have dolphins. And would you think those unqualified people that are forced to be on the boat, you think they would panic?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one point I like to make about I'd read some reviews actually by a skipper who gave it. He gave he gave Homer Simpson submarine movie three stars. He gave this 0 because there was a lot about. He didn't like the fact that they intimated that it could blow up, but. I wonder, Master Chief, if you went through the nuclear pipeline, you're familiar with SL1 that happened in 1961 in Idaho, in the Idaho testing ground.
I was a sonarman, so I was not on the nuclear track.
Oh, so it was a thermal nuclear explosion. I mean, it was very much similar to what could have happened on K-19. I'm just throwing that out to say that people that say, well, it couldn't have exploded. Well, that's what happened to SL1. That's what happened in Chernobyl too. So I think I'll turn it over to the prosecution.
One question from the bench, Master Chief. Can you punch your hacker card on K-19, the Widowmaker?
Oh no, I wouldn't punch my hacker card on that
above
one.
The hacker belt, huh?
No, it's above the hacker one. I didn't.
Hacker belt. That's our new podcast that's coming. Me and the Master Chief.
There you go.
It's called The Hacker Belt. We decide whether it's above or below the hacker belt, so that's it. That's the whole show.
That's excellent.
Mr. Schlender, anything before?
All right,
or
so
any
I
further
just.
exhibits you have?
All right, well, thank you for your time, Master Chief Schlender. Very, very much appreciate your learned testimony. So, apart from some of the historical inaccuracies that we've already addressed about how there is no mutiny, how we have this artificial tension that was created, just for the movie, which is purporting to be.
I don't know if you proved to that, but
no, we did. We read the lines from. Even the defense admitted there was no mutiny.
Yeah, I'll weigh in. I'll admit that a lot of that's Hollywood. Yeah. Absolutely, no question whatsoever.
Can we determine, was there a mutiny or not? Because I thought you had said
there was no mutiny.
Absolutely.
No, but not there wasn't in the movie either because it got foiled, right?
Well,
was there an attempted one?
It was a successful mutiny for a bit, and then they remutinized because the political officer would have the power to transfer command.
Or did they unmutinize?
And then Liam Neeson had a mini mutiny, which put Harrison Ford. So there's actually 2 mutinies, Your Honor, which is doubly historically inaccurate when you think about it.
Mini mutiny.
It was a teeny little mutiny, exactly, right? It's just a little one.
Just a little one.
Right before dinner. So anyway, there are going to be these historical inaccuracies, and that is something that the court has wrestled with in the past. And if you're going to introduce historical inaccuracies, but you're claiming based on a true story and you're trying to tell the story of these men, this is where we get out of mythology territory like we were in Amadeus, and we get into crafted misrepresentation, which would be more like Immortal Beloved and Ben's favorite, The Last Samurai. So while we do have allowances for some, let's call it historical coloration, I would argue that K-19 should not be held in that same esteem, because it is saying it's based on true story, and it is trying to tell the story of these men, to the point where 1% of the gross of this movie was supposed to be donated to survivors and their families of K-19. Now, here's the thing, since it didn't actually make any money, there's probably some Hollywood accounting. They probably didn't get any of that money. I wasn't able to find if any checks were written.
Hope they didn't lose money.
So that's the pin I want. Yeah, right. That's true. They actually have
poor war widows.
I know. So that's just the pin I want to put on the historical inaccuracies, is that the movie is leaning heavily on them, whereas they are completely fabricated, doing a disservice to the people who serve. Not unlike what we saw with the hijacking events in the Delta Force movie. So if Henry wants to respond one more time to the historical stuff, then I can move on to the...
Yeah, not so much. We've covered whether it is or isn't accurate, but is it disrespectful to the people who actually went through this, Henry, to make stuff up and Hollywoodize it?
I think that's a fascinating and fantastic question. To what extent, when you tell a story and you take liberties, to what extent do you deviate so much that you're being untrue to the original source material? When a memoirist writes that, they make kind of a pact with their reader that that's the interest, is you're telling a true story. And probably the best example, the negative example, is Pieces of Me, I think it was, where the fellow made up all this nonsense that he portrayed as being true, and everyone felt cheated when they found out it wasn't. So I guess the question, and I intend to prove this, is that the gist of it, the core of it is true. I mean, the fact there wasn't a movie, nobody got a pistol in front of their head, that's completely irrelevant. But the gist of it, the gist of it was a man ordering men into a rat compartment to a certain death. And that was true, and that happened, and the movie was true to that.
All right, so I would like to move on to the 1-2 punch here of the acting choices and directorial choices. I mean, acting right off the jump, what are these accents? I don't know, because they're coming and going. The guy with the mustache doesn't even try. Liam Neeson slips out of his accent like it's like a nice pair of slippers. And Harrison Ford is really, I think he wanted to be doing like his best Sean Connery, which is actually funny. The reason he didn't do The Hunt for the Red October is because he didn't want to be upstaged by Sean Connery, which he obviously would have been. So we have... And what kills me, though, is Liam Neeson, Harrison Ford, these are good actors. Like, they know what to do here. And I'll give a little credit. They have the bearing of authority. But when you're watching this, they keep slipping in the accents, and when you know so much of this drama, that this tension between them isn't actually real, it kind of deflates the movie. And most of the tension that the movie's trying to generate at the beginning anyway is just Harrison Ford just doing training exercises that might be a bit too severe, which dovetails into the directorial decisions that we see from Kathryn Bigelow, who, again, is normally pretty good with action. She likes dangerous men doing dangerous things. If you look at her filmography, I mean, yeah, no, it's a good genre. She's good at it. I think she suffers here. And again, we're going back to The Hunt for the Red October. Let's compare two scenes. In K-19 Widowmaker, we have when they emerge through the ice. For whatever reason, this is filmed in super close-up. We see the front of the sub, the top of the sub, all come up through the ice. There's no sense of scale or proportion. There's no way to tell how thick and dangerous the ice is because it's so zoomed in on the outside of the sub. Now you look at what would arguably be one of the most memorable scenes from The Hunt for the Red October is when they blow the ballast and the sub comes flying out of the water and creates this huge splash. Hunt for the Red October does a great job of doing all the tight indoor submarine stuff. But the director was smart enough to know to zoom out when you were outside the sub. And Kathryn Bigelow simply doesn't do that. Now, we don't spend a lot of time outside the sub, mind you, but these would have been
Yeah,
great.
you'll drown.
Yeah, right. This would have been a great opportunity to present some contrast to let the movie breathe a bit, but instead it's all zoomed in, it's all close up, and it gets pretty tiring. It gets pretty pat.
Can I respond?
Henry, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So you bring up a good thing. So where is the point of eye from the viewer? And you're absolutely right. K-19 is in feeling is very different from Hunt for October. Hunt for October is a comic book. It's got a lot of big scenes. That just it's writ large. Whereas K-19 is very claustrophobic. I don't think that's by accident. I think if you had those big scenes that you're referring to, Dylan, you would lose something. And my best example, best example, it's an old movie. It's William Golding's Lord of the Flies. When you read Lord of the Flies, you read about these children descending into cannibalism and savagery. It doesn't work when you watch the movie because you watch it and they're always children, but when you read it, you're immersed. So if she had done that, if she had done all the popcorn comic book shots that you wanted to see from Hunt for October, you would have lost something. And I think that's my when I get a chance to make my case. This is a very, very true story of what it's like probably, like I said, after Das Boat, the most true non-comic book submarine movie there is. And it's because, not despite of, but because of her artistic choices.
All right, but I'm going to push back on this because you can't keep having it both ways. You can't keep saying like, oh, well, it's not comic booky, this is deliberate, where she deliberately then injects all this comic book drama that didn't actually happen in real life. So she's already picking and choosing what to exaggerate. My point is she could have had more dynamic shots in a better frame to present the stories, to present this action. You say we would lose something. Well, you know what she lost? My interest. And I will rest there on the directorial point to give Henry his time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Henry, please present any exhibits you have remaining that we haven't touched on already.
Yeah, thanks for actually giving me a lot to think about. I actually had not thought about it. I just was so into the movie that I accepted the point of view. I have to think about that, actually, if it had been... actually, my take that serves me nobody. First of all, he's like, how thick is the ice here? And he looks up in a book. I mean, Master Chief, help me out here. That's not the way. Like, I've been to North Pole. Okay, that's not the way we service through North Pole. We have a fathometer basically that goes up and it takes a reflection off the air ice interface and the water and you don't just say look up in a chart and say, oh, a week ago it was a meter. That was nonsense. And generally, the whole name of the game actually is to keep the screw free, because if you mess up the screw, you're not going home. If you hit the ice and if you don't pop through right away, you can blow a little in your ballast tanks. But if you blow too much, you'll roll over in your side and you will never, ever go home because you can't vent the ballast tanks and you'll be stuck there forever and ever until global warming frees you. So it's
That may not be that long.
Oh, say again?
It would have been a long time in the 60s, man.
I was going to say, it may not be that long.
Long time, yeah. So it's not a cowboy, let's take her up and punch you the ice like that. So that's the part that I reacted to, not the claustrophobia of it. So in my time, so basically, and I don't want to diminish the point you're making, Dylan. I think you asked an excellent question. Like, to what point can you make stuff up and still tell a story? And my best example, I don't know if we've all seen the movie Bridge Over the River Kwai, right? It's a fantastic story, right? None of it happened, by the way. None of it. The book was written. The guy didn't even know where the River Kwai was. He wrote that story. The bridge was actually bombed by British bombers. Actually, none of that. That was all made up. But it's a very riveting, psychological story about a man getting kind of wrapped up with his captors or something. But it's a very good story, even though it didn't really happen anywhere near. Much less, if you're looking percentage-wise, much less than this, was to the facts. So I want to make the case that this keeps enough of the story, besides the fact there wasn't a mutiny, that you really walk away with what it's like to serve on a submarine, and in a larger sense, to serve in the military. In the military, you don't get to choose. That's one of my big problems I have with Hunt for October. I hate that movie because the scene where
You hate The Hunt? What?
it's a good popcorn movie, but I'll tell you something. The one thing, and Master Chief will back me up on this, the one thing you know in Military 101, if you carve out your soul into tiny little bits, it would still say the thing that's left there would still say you follow orders. You don't interpret orders, you follow orders. And the scene in Hunt for October that drives me nuts so is where the Alec Baldwin carrier drops out of the sky, whatever, and he says, and the skipper already has orders to take out that boat, period, unequivocally, has orders to take out that boat. And he says, well, if he turns left, don't take him out, turns right, whatever. You don't do that. You don't get to make up your own orders. You follow orders. So what this movie is about, they didn't have immunity, this, that, the other thing. What this movie is about is following orders and ordering men to their deaths. And it's not a hypothetical thing. The John McCain, very sad, in 2017, we had two brand new Army-class destroyers just ran themselves into ships in the South China Sea. And it's very sad. We lost 7 men on the first one, men and women. We have women in the Navy now, 10 on the second. The second boat, the John McCain, there were bodies floating in a shut compartment. They had to shut the compartment on those men, even though to save the ship. That's what being in the military is, and I think that's why that this movie didn't get the shrift that it deserved, because we have been fed this hagiography about servicemen that they're upright and outstanding and everything, and have lost that you have to make real choices. So real quickly, I watched it again before to prepare for this. There's some quotes that I was laughing and crying, watching this. One is, he talks to his officers. You have failed to set high standards. I can't tell you how many times a skipper in my first boat said, I will not apologize for my high standards. That just rang so true. There's so many elements where he talks to Polinin and he says, he's qualified, so he's going to stand it. And that was my skipper's attitude. Once you're qualified, that was it. He didn't second guess you. Once it was very hard to qualify under him, but once you were qualified, he did not second guess you. There's another scene where, you have to be, it might seem cold-hearted, but the dock gets run over by a truck, as it happens. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to stand in front of the truck to get him to stop, but there you go. The skipper's like, you stay here, wait for the body. You guys get back to work. It's serious business. It's not like, oh, let's have a, tell me what you felt about that, and let's have a sensitivity session, and you can tell me your feelings. Those are the scenes that really evoked what it's like to be on a boat for me. A couple others. The scene I was laughing at, I think you talked about it, Dylan, where they're watching the movie and it's showing all the bad stuff about America. I can remember being, off somebody's coast, whatever, listening to Radio Moscow, and it was hilarious. They would be on the radio going, oh, do American children, do they love their fathers? No, they do not. It was just the pure propaganda these people are being fed. So, there's a scene where, he orders the ship down to 300 meters and everyone's nervous. And he's like, the boat's rated for it. We're going to do it. And the scenes where in Master Chief, I think I'd very be interested in your perspective, and especially being chief of the boat, which is the number 3 man on a submarine. He drills people incessantly and drills them, and he has multiple drills. And I'll tell you, as a weapons officer, I found I had a very interesting experience where I was doing a weapons drill right after a engineering drill that we simulated fire back aft, whatever. And when you have a fire in a submarine, it's serious business, and there's a lot of humping of hoses. You're wearing these FFEs, fire suits that weigh about 100 pounds in OBAs, and you're humping. You lose probably 10 pounds of moisture sweating on a fire drill. Long story short, right after that, I had a weapons shoot, and my guys were screwing up by the numbers because their adrenaline was, and it dawned on me that, if we ever get in a shooting match, this is the way it's going to be. Their adrenaline is going to be through the roof. And after that, I scheduled all my weapons shoots as best I could after an engineering drill just to artificially get their adrenaline up. So that part rang really true. So let's see, if there are a couple other scenes. There were a lot of nonsense.
I want to jump in real quick on one point, because I do think it's important. And you're talking about a big part of this movie is commanders ordering men to their death, right? And we see the 7 people who enter the Corps. They die immediately. A total of 42 men would end up dying from the radiation exposure that they suffered on K-19. So I think when we're looking at that, by having the artificial drama on top of that actually diminishes the impact of what ordering a man to his death would be. Having this kind of high tension and high emotion between Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson undercuts what would actually be, and actually was, very matter-of-fact orders saying 2 men go in every 10 minutes. Like it wasn't a guy off on the side like Liam Neeson making a long face and mourning his men. I mean, of course he's going, and no one wants to lose a man under them, of course. But you are right. The fact of the matter is you will have to order men to do things that you cannot do as a commander as well. That's why he wouldn't let Liam Neeson go in with the first crew or at all, for example. And that's actually a common trope we see in a lot of naval movies, is usually the captain will spare his next officer and stuff. But anyway, by adding all this Hollywood drama and gobbledygook on that, it really undercuts what is an important order, which is an important part of the mission. This idea that you're almost going to make Harrison Ford look like the bad guy because of all this, when in actuality, he's just saved all their lives, and trying to make this a contrast between him and Liam Neeson and then trying to pull the rug out from under you at the end, it falls flat. So I think you make a very good point, and I think the movie undercuts it.
So you saw that. That's interesting. So you saw that as a distraction to the main theme then.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
If they cut down on the drama and they made it more procedural, there's going to be interesting things that happen in the world that aren't necessarily narratively interesting for a movie. And the K-19 disaster, that was actually nicknamed Hiroshima, not the Widowmaker, just a little other factoid out there. That is an interesting event. It's interesting because of the context of the Cold War. The actual minutia of what happened in the sub itself, based on surviving testimony, it was pretty standard operating procedure, even though it was catastrophic, mind you. So trying to make it more dramatic and pumped up from what it really was, I do think undercuts what is actually a very important historical event. And I know you were saying it's not supposed to be a documentary, but I think if you're going to tell the history, being able to show that kind of cold Soviet heart, as one way of looking at it, maybe, but you as a military man, my father is a military man, and you said earlier, like the hard men who stand ready to do mean things, that's really part of it. And that would have been a great opportunity to really show that in a movie, but it gets bogged down with the Hollywood drama.
Yeah. So here's how I'll respond to that. So, like I said, I can't remember his name. It begins with an R. I think he rated all the submarine movies. Like I said, he gave Homer Simpson 3, gave this 0. And, the 2
hey, Simpson Tide is a great episesode.
Agreed.
So I'm sure the benefits of Simpson, I'm sure that's for another day. But here he gave it a 0 because, like I said, he didn't like that they intimated that it could have been a nuclear. And actually, I went back and watched it. He never intimated it could be a nuclear explosion. He just said an explosion, and he makes a point saying there's no such thing as sympathetic detonations. Well, that's exactly what took down the Kursk, and a thermal explosion, like I said, is what took down SL-1 in the Idaho desert, and what took down sadly, Chernobyl. But the other point that he makes, he said, there's a scene that he calls out. He says, well, why would you order the boat to go down submerged? It'd be easier to fix a reactor on the surface. And that guy, he's I have a lot of respect for him, don't get me wrong, but he confuses a narrative. The reason, if you go back and watch the movie, the reason they submerge, he's absolutely right. Technically, there's no reason to submerge. The reason they submerge is because then they can be incommunicado, and then they go up and they can have that scene where the skipper, Harrison Ford, is ready to turn over to the Americans, which never happened, by the way. And then they said, you don't have to, because you had to be incommunicado, and then they can have the big reveal that, the S-270 has come and, they're going to rescue his men. So the reason they went deep was for narrative purposes. Now,
well, and to be fair, you're responding to arguments I didn't bring up. I appreciate that this guy made a list.
The larger point I'm making, though. So
I want to concede, though, that what
let's let Henry finish. Let's let Henry.
No, what they're worried about in the movie is that they're
order.
Well, no, just in 15 seconds, you made the point that you thought, if I'm capturing your criticism correctly, you're making the point that the whole frisson between the XO and the skipper was distracting. And the point I'm making, it was required for arc. Whenever you write a story, it has to have an arc. You have to have one main character. He has to have a problem at the beginning of the story, and that story has to give the answer to the problem. The main character in this story is not Polennin. It's not the Liam Neeson character. It's the Harrison Ford character. The Harrison Ford character is inculcated in Soviet ideology, and he has to go through this whole thing. So in order to show that, they had to make a counterpoint opponent. Did it really happen? Of course it did not happen. Master Chief is actually right. There's no daylight ever between an XO and a skipper, outside their stateroom, let me tell you. But they needed that. They needed that to tell the story, to have the arc, because what's the arc? The arc is, at the final point, Harrison Ford says, you know what, I'm gonna save my men. I don't give a damn. And then you have the big reveal. You don't have to. The S-270 showed up. So I'm not going to disagree. It's distracting, but I'm saying for narrative purposes, it was needed. Just like the boat had to go deep for narrative purposes, even though technically it wasn't needed.
Anything to respond to that, Shlender?
No, that's fair. I mean, we were kind of saying that. I just want the jury to know that he's responding to arguments I wasn't making.
They probably know. Henry, any last exhibits you've got?
Let's see. So I told you guys, the more I watch this, the more I fell in love with it. There's a lot of nonsense here. I mean, they're rigged for red at one point, and it's freaking daylight outside. Why are they rigged for red? There's a scene where they're going deep, and the sail, which is a free flood area, is like getting crunched up by the pressure. That doesn't happen. He tends to order up bells, with this, 15 knots with the scope up, which would bend over your scope. And at one point he does it so, I mean, there's a lot of.
Do you want to keep naming things the movie doesn't do right?
Please keep going. It's Ben's corner.
So I guess my final point is that setting aside technical errors or whatever, a lot of it was in subservience to the narrative. And like I said, I started a discussion by saying that I think, with the possible exception of Das Boot, this is the movie that shows what it's like to be enclosed in a tube, better than all the popcorn comic book ones that show Americans as U-571 and all the nonsense out there. This is it.
All right, cool. Thank you. All sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Schlender, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Look, I don't think it's any secret. I hate communists. And we have two men in this courtroom right now who dedicated a big chunk of their life to fighting communists, so we wouldn't have to. So I want to thank both Henry and my father for their service in the U.S. Navy. Very important work that they did. K-19 Widowmaker is an interesting bit of history, right? what does it actually mean when we think about the Cold War? We always think about these events like the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we're 1 minute from midnight, 8 seconds from midnight, 2 minutes from midnight, to quote Iron Maiden. But thankfully, we never got there. We have all these interesting little nooks and crannies we can go down when it comes to the Cold War. And tonight we went down the K-19. And the fact of the matter is, while an interesting event in the grand scheme of the Cold War, the actual dynamics on the ship, pretty unextraordinary. Would not make for a great movie unless you pump up the Hollywood drama. But by pumping up the Hollywood drama, you're undercutting the very things that made that interesting. We've talked about historical accuracy in this courtroom before. We've come down in a couple different ways. In that jury room, you have to decide, is K-19 pulling the wool over our eyes? Is it trying to tell a different story than what we saw? Are we going to throw it in with the Last Samurais, the Delta Forces? I think we should. If you think, no, the Soviet, we can have a bit of mythology around this, which again, they're not purporting to do. They say based on a true story. Script had to be even worked from its original draft, but still the actual survivors complained. Something to think about. Something to think about Liam Neeson's accent. Where did it go? I don't know. No one may ever know. He may have left it at that when they went under 300 meters. It never came back up with him. So when you go in the jury room, take a moment and understand that the actual historical record is more important than this 2002 movie, and voted guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rausch, please present your closing argument.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you guys. I thought I already had, so I'll take another stab to respond to Dylan's.
We do 2 or 3 wrap-ups, honestly.
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about commies. Everybody hates commies. They're like one level above Nazis, and you're not supposed to cheer for Nazis. You're not supposed to cheer for commies. I think that's one of the reasons this movie did not have a good play. I talked about some of the others. I think people have because there's only 5% of American citizens that actually been in the service. They've got no idea what it's like to serve, and they don't realize that a lot of that movie rings so true. The accents, I'm not going to defend the accents. There's always conventions. Unless you're a freaking fluent Russian speaker, there's no good way to do it. You can have subtitles, and that pisses off some people. You can have bad accents. But the core, you said it would make a group movie if it were not amping up the drama. And I would submit to you that the gist of it really is. The fact of the matter is the lieutenant, there's a lot of movie stuff in there. You have to have an arc where the Sarsgaard character, the reactor lieutenant, has to, have a moment of cowardice and to redeem himself. That's just movie 101. The fact of the matter is that guy got 5,400 rem. To give you the LD 5030, the lethal dose for 30% of the population is 500 rem. So he got 11 times a lethal dose. He was the first guy to die, by the way. You can't tell me that's not drama in and of itself. Stripping away some, externalities about maybe there wasn't a schism between the XO. That thing just, and if you want to watch a movie, I'll leave it with this. If you want to watch a movie that really captures what it's like to be sealed in a tube and, next to a reactor that could, fry you like a burrito in a microwave, or the pressure would kill you, this is it. This is the one to watch.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Mr. We Deliver or We Drown, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You've all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way? I just want you all to know that my accent has never, ever gone in and out.
He's right.
Kind of like Scotty, right?
But animal-style fries are so delicious. Oh, you mean a different In-N-Out. Gotcha. Okay. Guys, what are we thinking? Ben, you've been the quietest of us all, so why don't you tell us your feelings on K-19?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed was the accents. That is a hard pill to swallow when this film starts. It's just Liam Neeson. It just comes and goes. Harrison Ford at least does what he's doing a little bit consistently, but it made me like feel so bad for everything I said about Kevin Costner's accent in Robin Hood. You know, I'll take that consistency any day. But I did kind of enjoy how Dylan bringing in an expert witness kind of blew up in his face a little bit.
Totally backfired.
It seemed like, yeah, this is actually kind of more accurate than I had thought it would be.
Darren liked the movie.
Did he?
It sounded like he said it was above the hacker belt.
Yeah, okay.
That's good.
He loves hackers.
So when you're doing a movie like this, Dylan is trying to portray it as like damned if you do, damned if you don't when it comes to historical accuracy. I think you do have to make some concessions to tell a story. It seems like this movie made like 2 or 3, which is kind of not bad considering the amount of concessions I had thought they might be making. You know, if like the XO and the Captain were like the same. You'd think they'd have to be the same character for it to be interesting. In order to do that, they have to make them have some kind of conflict. And I think that it kind of handles that fairly well, because if everyone was just like following the Captain's orders the whole time and it's without question, you know, I don't think it would be that interesting to watch. Maynard, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Schlenzo kind of got himself in a little bit of a logic knot there, right? I mean, he said, you know, the real life story was very straightforward, not very interesting. You know, so they had to pump up the drama, but if they hadn't pumped up the drama, it undercut what was interesting, I think was the term. But he said it wasn't interesting to begin with. So
well, I said that was the interesting.
You're not in this room. Not in this room.
Misrepresenting
very
everything.
bad.
Get out of here.
We were there. We heard it. It's in evidence.
Shoot. Get out.
Get us to call your father to
hit
drag
you with a
you out.
broomstick. Get out of here. Get out of here.
So the accents I'll give you. I don't think Liam Neeson's all that strong an actor, and so I think he was probably doing us a favor by dropping the accent more often than not.
This would be a lot better to watch like in Russian with subtitles. Like it would be so much more.
I'm glad you brought that
involving.
up, Ben, because you know what would have worked if they pulled the same thing that they did in The Hunt for Red October, where they're speaking in Russian with subtitles, and then you zoom into their mouths, and all of a sudden they're speaking in their own dialect and speaking in their own accents, and that's why Sean Connery can get away with playing Russian, just like I can get away with playing a Spaniard in Highlander. But I honestly think that could have helped the accent game a little bit. But at the same time, I was watching it and I was like, it's no run silent, run deep, but I kind of dig it. Like, I was honestly surprised that I enjoyed it. And when the guy started like turning up with radiation burns and started dying off, I was so sad.
That stuff's hard.
It was so fucked up. And just the fact that happened, I mean, as you know, I do not prize historical accuracy over narrative. I think narrative wins out when you're doing a movie. And Catherine, despite what Dylan said, I think Catherine Bigelow was shooting at the top of her game at this point. It's very dynamically blocked and composed in terms of the cinematography and the staging of it. But at the same time, you know, it has narrative deficiencies, which is weird when you add a narrative to a story. But I kind of walked away a little impressed, especially after hearing about supposedly how terrible this movie was. But Rob, I cut you off. I don't want to make it seem like you didn't have more to say. So.
No, that is fine. I'm used to it. That's one for you out of 2,000 for me. You know, Schlenzo said that he hates commies, and this movie had them dying throughout the whole movie,
and it's sad,
from horrible radiation. So you'd think he'd like it more because of that. So I thought the acting was pretty good, even if the accents weren't. I thought that there was still manly tension between the two main characters, and I thought that was interesting and compelling.
Yeah, there's good glances between the two of them, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not really what would have happened, like they both said, that's not exactly the way it would have gone down. But since this is a movie, right, it is more interesting to see it like that. And I think especially for civilian audiences, wrapping your brain around doing, just following orders blindly is not something that a lot of people do.
Right, and it's something you have to feel. It's like a
Well, it's like hammered
tactile
in you, yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
It
I
has to
just think it would make those
actually-
characters hard to relate to any civilian
Yeah.
audience.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah, just like go in and die. I order you. Like no argument. You know, it'd be like
Well,
okay.
no, that said, I mean, the captain had a really hard choice to make, and I know you guys have a lot of Star Trek episodes where the captain has to make those tough calls.
Yes,
but like,
but they can't
if no,
portray that in reality. You know, like the captain has to be like beyond question. Whereas in Star Trek or something fictional, they have Kirk agonize over it.
yeah, but I think that the captain made the decision he had to do. I mean, yes, he ordered some men to their deaths so that they didn't all die. You know, it was the lesser of the two evil choices. So, you know,
He's ordering people to do a job he wouldn't do himself because he can't take himself out of the equation.
Yeah, and he doesn't know how either, right? And stuff like that. You know, the only thing is like it probably should have. The problem is they should have explained, no, you're going to die. Like you're going to get a lethal amount of radiation because these suits aren't real.
All right.
Anyway,
lock it in.
no, Ryan, I'd like to hear a little more from you. Anything else? Do you think the reason they did the close-up sub is because it was CGI?
I think that it was actually a mixture of CGI and model work. But you can see the budget when they do the scene where they're playing football on the ice, and you have the entire submarine sticking out of the ice. That's one of those things where there's no covering that up in 2002 with digital sheen. It's not a real submarine, but it is a real facsimile of a submarine.
It's half a real submarine. They got it half off from Army surplus, Navy surplus. Anyway, I'm gonna lock in. You know, I thought we heard a lot of stuff about historical accuracy, which is fair, but I do agree that, you know, in a movie, you want some drama. You want it to leave the thread. It's not a documentary, so I agree with that. The prosecution star witness mostly helped the defense, so that really moved me quite a bit. There was a moment though where the prosecution mentioned like the damage the sub, or the defense mentioned the damage the sub would have taken, so it almost kind of swayed me back the other way.
That periscope that ruins it. Never mind.
I was like, wait, don't mention that stuff. But so if the Master Chief says it's above the hacker belt, I think that's all I got. You know, for me, it's not guilty, above the hacker belt.
Big Ben?
I think that they both tended to agree that as far as historical accuracy goes, the salient points are true. So, you know, I can kind of go with that. And I also like films that try to, you know, rather than focusing just on Americans, it tries to focus on the point of view of someone else, the point of view of the loser. And I kind of liked how it had that propaganda scene in there. One of the most interesting things about the World War II Museum was the propaganda room, where it's just like, you know, Japanese people depicting Americans as big, ugly thugs, and us depicting them as like snide and like vicious. So, you know, it does do a good job of kind of, I don't want to say both sidesing it, but like saying that there can be heroism on the other side of our conflict. And if this is the best depiction of life in a tight tube, except for Das Boot, I guess I'll take that. So I'll go not guilty.
Well, it's not going to surprise anybody, but you guys, we have a unanimous verdict.
Wow.
I'm going not guilty too. Although I did not like the prosecution's constant pejorative of comic book. Comic books are great. Thank you very much.
They have their place.
That was the defense, not me.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Well, we don't like the prosecution anyway.
Yeah. Let's go tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of the People versus K-19, the Widowmaker, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie.
Boo! I boo all the time anyway. I just like booing. The verdict is so rendered. K-19, the Widowmaker, is hereby free to go, and therefore we will not need to try K1 through K18. Court is adjourned.
We should at least do K9 because that's supposed to be funny.
This is Daryl reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Henry Rausch, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Well, I think the verdict hinged on a very good question that hasn't been 100% resolved. Is, you know, what point when you're telling a story is it okay to deviate from the truth? And I think a lot of these movies, when I come away, when I see something based on something or inspired by whatever, it just motivates me to go read about it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And then you can kind of compare and contrast. There's a lot of biopics, where they take liberties when they tell a man's story, a lot of musicians and whatever. So I don't think that's a bad thing to watch something and then be intrigued to go and see what the real story was that inspired the drama that you watch. So I encourage people to do that. I already told you I think it's a good movie. It shows submarine life, but above that, if you watch a movie that purports to be based on a true story, right after that, go watch the Ken Burns documentary and see what the real deal was and compare it and ask yourself, why did they tell the story that way?
All right. Thank you. Oh, and here comes Dylan Schlender. Excuse me, sir. Sir, you got a word on how you feel about today's verdict?
Yes, I
We've never
certainly
met
do.
before, have we?
Yes, you do look very familiar. Look, this was a dream episode of mine ever since Maynard called me that fateful September afternoon and said, we're doing the podcast. I knew I wanted to get a submarine episode. And Henry's experience, just tremendous. Having my father, the Master Chief, on to share his experience, tremendous. And yes, I may have lost, but you know what? It's okay, because I really feel like I'm the real winner. This episode is going to appeal to about maybe 5 people, and I'm 4 of them. So thank you.
No, I don't appeal to more than that.
Well, thank you very much. That's all we have from the courthouse today, so let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis.
That was so smooth, it makes me ashamed to have ever done a silly voice in this damn interview.
We're all just going to be ourselves from here on out.
Just have you record boilerplate, and we'll just plug in whatever's going to happen that week. Oh, man.
And that story that Schlender told her about calling him, that's not the way it happened, but we pumped up the drama to increase the interest.
We actually had a real mutiny on Reels of Justice, but that's a story for another day.
I did have a gun shoved in my face. But Henry, what's been keeping you busy when you're not here? What are you usually doing?
I've been listening to you guys' podcast. I gotta say, the banter back and forth just cracks me up. So you guys invited me. I wrote this one book, Submerged, his story of my life on a boat as a junior officer. That's gotten a lot of good reception. And then I wrote another book, How to Hotwire an Airplane. That's about a Vietnam vet who has PTSD and is about to blow his brains out, and instead he ends up flying illegal immigrants over the heads of the Border Patrol in southern Texas. So and I'm writing a story now about illegal street racing that ends up destroying all the world's GPS satellites. So that's kind of where my head's at. I like things that I don't know, maybe kind of grab your attention.
Well, that sounds great. And your submarine book, it's the #1 naval military biography on Amazon right now. I mean, so congratulations on that. It's doing very well.
Nice.
It has been. It's been for 11 months running as I speak. And I've gotten a lot of submariners have contacted me and very gratified. It really spoke to their experience. And, without going into a lot of detail, like one of the reasons I think it's been successful is that a lot of memoirs by senior naval officers are kind of by corporate men that have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid and swallowed everything, and they've whitewashed everything a lot. And if you read their memoirs, everything was great, and the crew was happy, and the crew was patriotic, and they're happy to do field day. And none of that was true. It was kind of a hard life. And I think that's why it's really kind of gotten a following.
Oh, Henry, come on. I was a cop. The field day was the best day ever.
Daryl, have you been drinking the Kool-Aid?
Field day was the most fun time on the boat. You got to keep it clean. No.
Schlender, you picked up this book?
Yeah, so right now it's like everyone should go buy it on Amazon, of course, and Again, it's just a very,
Wherever
very
you
good
like.
personal. Yeah, exactly. Very good personal stories in there from Henry. So just again, congratulations. Just an excellent book. And it's so much of it reminds me of like stories that like my dad would tell me. So like just getting you both on the show. So I want everyone out there in the audience to realize we've got over 40 years of submarine experience jammed in to this show. It really is a special thing.
Hey, and I took a few submarine tours, so there's like 5 or 6 hours to
And
add
I've
to
ridden the
our
Finding
collective
Nemo
total.
submarine voyage at Disneyland like 3 times. That counts.
Oh yeah, I went on the
Okay.
Jules Verne one, 20,000
All right,
leagues.
so
That slapped.
44.006
And I saw Joss Boots. So.
years.
Yeah, and I watched this movie. Now, Henry, we always ask for suggestions from our guests for movies you think people should see. So, what do you think people should see?
So, the one that kind of it's very different venue, but the one that really reminded me of K-19 it's an old movie. It was made in 1970, and the Italians and the Soviets conspired to make it. It's about the Umberto Nobile in 1926. He tried to sail a dirigible to North Pole. Actually got to North Pole, but it crashed going back to Svalbard, and the men were stranded on the ice. And there's a movie that was made in 1970 called The Red Tent, and it has Sean Connery in it. And it really kind of set me for life, actually, about the polar regions. And it's a similar theme in that Umberto Nobile, he survived. He was taken off the ice, and there was a lot of controversy about whether or not he should have gotten off the ice or stayed with his men, but he did more work, arguably by getting off the ice. And basically he's haunted. He's haunted by, these decisions he made, 30 years before. And he calls back all the ghosts, as it happens, Roald Amundsen perished searching for him. He's dead, and all the ghosts come back and they hold a court about whether he's guilty or not. And so it's the same theme about the terrors at command and making tough choices. It's called The Red Tent. It's not terribly easy to find. Maybe you could find it with streaming.
I'll find it.
I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. Actually, it set my whole course into that. And Ice Station Zebra set me, to go to the North Pole.
That sounds like a Ryan Luis Rodriguez kind of movie. Ryan, you see this movie, Red Tent?
I have not, and you can rent it. Let me see. Give me 1 second.
The Red Tent Rent?
The Red Tent Rent.
Red Tent from Redbox?
Loading.
There it is.
Is that still
While you look for that, Daryl, what have you got for us? What kind of movie do you
You
think
can get it on
people should
Amazon.
watch? Something to punch the hacker card?
Oh no! Well, if you really want to punch the hacker card, well, then you can watch the remake of Rollerball.
From the director of the
The original is
Red
above the
October.
belt, but the remake is.
Why do you want people? I don't know if
I don't want anybody to watch
you
it.
don't want
If
people
you
to
want
watch
to
it.
just go back and watch an old timey movie, because I'm an old timey kind of guy, I would just recommend go watch The Searchers with John Wayne, because it's one of the few movies where John Wayne kind of plays the anti-hero in it as a cowboy. But the cinematography alone and the vistas and the shots are worth the
Port
watch.
shot. Oh, one of the best
Port
in all of
shot.
cinema.
I mean, it's basically a perfect movie. Good pick, Dad.
Yeah. I just didn't know John Wayne walked like that. Schlenza, what have you got?
Well, don't worry, Maynard. I'll be punching the hacker card for all of us tonight.
Good.
Because I wanted to find a Charlie Bronson submarine movie, but it doesn't exist. And until AI gets better, we're going to have to wait a few years. But I did find one from 2013 called Phantom, starring Ed Harris and David Duchovny. Not making this
That's
up.
not fair. Come on.
Oh my God, right? I mean, if that's just not the sign of the kind of quality of movie this is going to be. And what this is about is another Russian sub that gets lost in the 60s. I think it's K-129. I'd have to look up the number again. It doesn't matter. The point of the matter is that they don't even try to do accents in this. And Ed Harris reads so freaking American. He's like the most American actor out there. Like, you just don't buy him. as
More
the
than Kevin Costner?
Soviet sub-commander.
It's like getting
Right?
Sam Elliott as a.
Oh, I know. Well, and you know who his superior officer is, like the super vice admiral who's calling the shots, is Lance Hendrickson. The movie's surprisingly stacked, and it's not that great. It's pretty boring. David Duchovny plays the political officer on board. He's actually a secret KGB agent. And this goes with the conspiracy that sub was sent to actually do a preemptive strike on an American target, but was ran into issues and was sunk before it could succeed in the mission. So I think as of now, it's classified for what the sub was actually doing there. So the movie's complete dramatic license to the point where everyone's actually ghosts at the end. Spoilers. It's so if you want to punch
the red tent.
Yeah, right. So if you want to watch, actually it is like the red tent. That's funny how that works out. So if you want to punch the hacker card on a submarine movie, Phantom 2013 is for you. It's not on Tubi. I have no idea why. I mean, it's a feature film that stars David Duchovny. It's
Even
gotta
Tubi has standard Schlender.
I did love Evolution, but it wasn't because of him. It turns out David Duchovny could literally just be Mulder from X-Files. Like, that was the role he was literally born to play, and he can't do anything else. But
Californication and Hung did well. He did
I
good
did
in
not
TV,
like,
apparently.
He wasn't in Hung. He was in
Jane.
California. That's Tom Jane.
Oh, they look so similar. Or no, I think Californication's too similar to it. I think
Californication I did not care for.
That's enough!
David
My
Duchovny would be a great
recommendation is about a submarine of a different kind. Because it's a tank.
God damn it!
Because at the end of the day, what are tanks if not the submarines of the land? It's 2014's Fury.
Oh, nice.
The crew of a Sherman tank bicker and squabble their way across 1945 Germany. It's been a while since I first saw this movie, but God, is it overwrought, at times borderline painful. It's like every guy in this cast is competing with each other for biggest ham. From Lieutenant Aldo Rain, Brad Pitt, retreading his accent from Inglourious Bastards, to Shia LaBeouf's religious fanaticism shtick. Yes, this is from a time when Hollywood was still trying to make Shia LaBeouf happen. To John Bernthal being the second biggest piece of shit in all of World War II. It's ultimately Michael Pena who comes out smelling the best simply for having some semblance of reservation. Every single member of this crew clearly suffers from some brand of PTSD. And the inevitable new meat recruit even gets his own PTSD montage about 15 minutes into his tour. But honestly, we're just here for the tanks, and all that is pretty cool. The first thing this film makes clear is that the American Sherman tanks are laughably obsolete compared to that of the Nazis. And it then proceeds to follow that up with 2 solid hours of the so-called superior German tanks getting their heinies whipped by a rusty bucket of bolts that barely holds together. I call it the Millennium Falcon effect. Maybe the Nazis would have had a better chance if they all attacked the American tank at once, but instead they employ some form of German noodle time tactics, which I'm hereby dubbing Spatzel time, which is also the name of my new mall cafeteria snack shack franchise. Get in on the ground floor, boys. If you want to check it out, Fury is currently streaming on Netflix. Support your local yuck.
Who did Duchovny play?
I think he was one of the Nazis. Maybe the one on fire.
I'm on fire. It's me, David Duchovny. Oh, no.
Big Ben, what have you got?
Today's film focuses on heroes on both sides of a conflict, and so, continuing in my walk-emendations, a journey into Chinese cinema, so does my pick for the day, one of, if not my favorite wuxia films, 2002's Hero. This is one of those films that is just breathtakingly beautiful, filmed with vibrant reds, whites, blues, yellows, and greens representing the emotions each segment is meant to convey. Hero is a film I'm dying to see in 4K high definition, but I believe I've only seen it in blocky streaming in a Netflix DVD once upon a time. It's gorgeous to the core. Hero is a fantasy fairy tale kind of film with an actual basis in one of history's most notorious figures, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. The man responsible for starting the Great Wall and who's still an open tomb is surrounded by the infamous terracotta warriors. The Qin in Qin Shi Huang is actually how we get the name China. And regrettably, a lot of Chinese history before his reign is hard to come by because he, like many dictatorial governments, burned books and tried to rewrite history as he tried to form himself as an immortal god. This movie focuses on a part of that notoriety, mostly the fictional vignettes of assassins trying to end him before he goes too far in his warpath by attacking neighboring kingdoms. It's the kind of film that unravels the more as you watch it, as Jet Li's character is granted an audience with this emperor, but can only stay within 10 paces for his killing of a previous few assassinators of this emperor. However, as the tale of how he comes across, copyright Ben Haslar. However, as the tale of how he comes across these assassins, soon the emperor begins to correctly guess that this man sitting before him is an assassin himself.
Twist!
This film then might jump first into my mind if I were given one shot as to how to impress someone with what Chinese cinema can do.
Ben, you're absolutely right. The movie's beautiful and brilliant. It's
Looks
fantastic.
amazing on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I need it. Give it to me. I need it.
I like all those arrows.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
Ryan, why don't you
Literally
send us
and
on home?
figuratively.
My Hecko-bendation this week is an oddity that I discovered a couple of months ago, an absolute curio from 2021 called Scott Bateman's, well, it's not called, he made it, 5,000 Space Aliens. It's apparently a collection of found footage, vintage photo studio pictures from Venezuela and Romania, and scraps from a 100-year-old psychology textbook, a total of 5,000 faces and bodies, a new one every single second, animated in a different style, presumably to educate the audience on how to spot space aliens among us. It's one of those films, it's not really a film, it's more of a museum installation, and I mean that in the most flattering way possible. There's plenty of manly tension. The cool thing is, I left a brief review on Letterboxd, and within a couple of minutes, the director was following me on the app, which is super flattering. 5,000 Space Aliens is currently streaming on Tubi and Hoopla. Support your local library.
Hoopla! Hoopla!
You know, if it's on Tubi, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like it's a sequel to Hundreds of Beavers. Hundreds
Or
of Beavers.
4,999 aliens, as the
Space
case may be.
aliens. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, with that, we are all at a show. We want to thank our guest, Henry Rausch, for joining us. Thank you so much, Henry.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're going to have you back. We look forward to it. You said bad things about Hunt for Red October. I'm sure someone will want to fight you about that. So,
Oh, bring it. Bring it.
See, there you go. We already got the next
Well,
one.
it's going to be brought.
And we'll thank our guest, Daryl Schlender, as well. Thank you, Master Chief.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
We're not going to have you back. I'm sorry. You know what you
I
did.
understand, I understand that. It was a one-time deal.
You ruined our bathroom.
They did such a good interview, though.
Oh, you're right. Let's have. We're going to record every interview we have to do. Just we're going to put that in the can for the next year.
Yeah.
But we hope everyone will join us as well as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Manly tension.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.